6 months had passed since that fateful day at Newark Airport. The leaves in Connecticut had changed from summer green to brilliant autumn gold and red, and now the first snow of winter dusted the grounds of Westbrook Academy. Jamal Lewis stood at the window of his dormitory room, watching older students build a snowman near the science building. Life had changed dramatically for Jamal and his mother. After visiting the school and the apartment in Hartford, they had made the decision to accept Richard Grant's offer. The events that followed only confirmed they had made the right choice. 2 days after their visit to Connecticut, Alan Voss had been arrested trying to board a private yacht in Miami. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Not only had the man who planted the device, Victor Kozlov, testified against him, but FBI agents had found detailed plans for the assassination on a hidden server in Voss's home. The story had made national headlines. Tech CEO arrested for murder plot against rival was splashed across newspapers and television screens. While Jamal's identity remained protected, the media reported that an observant young witness had thwarted the plot. Richard Grant had given a single interview stating only that he owed his life to a remarkable young person who saw what others missed. Jamal had started at Westbrook Academy in September. The school was everything Grant had promised. Beautiful campus, small, classes, and teachers who nurtured his interests. At first, Jamal had been overwhelmed. Most of the other students came from wealthy families and had attended private schools all their lives. They had traveled to countries Jamal had only seen in books and talked about summer homes and ski trips, as if everyone had them. But Jamal's natural intelligence and his unique story, which eventually became known among the students, earned him both respect and curiosity. He wasn't just the scholarship kid. He was the boy who had saved Richard Grant's life. Some of the teachers knew the full story, and they made extra efforts to help Jamal adjust and catch up in subjects where his previous school had fallen short. Denise had thrived in her new position at Globe Tech. After initial nervousness, she discovered that managing staff at a corporate level wasn't so different from running the cleaning crew at the airport, just with better pay and benefits. She had decorated their apartment with photos of family from Newark and items from their old home. Every other weekend, they took the train back to visit Jamal's grandmother and aunts. A knock at the dormitory door pulled Jamal from his thoughts. His roommate, Peter, poked his head in. "Hey, Jamal, there's a car for you out front. The headmaster says you're excused from afternoon classes." Jamal knew immediately what that meant. He grabbed his coat and backpack. Since starting at Westbrook, he had received several surprise visits from Richard Grant, who took a personal interest in his progress. Sometimes they just talked about school, but other times Grant took him on special trips, to air shows, aviation museums, or back to the Globe Tech Innovation Center for more simulator time. Sure enough, a familiar black SUV waited in the circular drive in front of the main building. Grant stood beside it, checking messages on his phone. He looked up as Jamal approached and smiled warmly. "There he is," Grant said. "Ready for an adventure?" "Yes, sir," Jamal replied eagerly. "Where are we going?" "It's a surprise," Grant said, as they got into the vehicle. "But I think you'll approve." They drove for about an hour, heading toward the coast. Eventually, they turned onto a private road that led to a small airfield. Jamal's excitement grew when he saw several small planes parked on the tarmac. "Is this what I think it is?" he asked, barely able to contain himself. Grant nodded. "Your test scores this semester were exceptional. I think you've earned a reward." They walked toward a small Cessna, where a woman in a pilot's uniform waited. Grant introduced her as Captain Rivera, a former Air Force pilot who now worked for Globe Tech's aviation division. "Jamal, Captain Rivera is going to give you your first real flying lesson," Grant explained. "She tells me you've been doing remarkably well on the simulator." Jamal could hardly believe it. He had been practicing on Globe Tech's simulator for months, but this was different. This was a real plane. "Will I actually get to fly it?" he asked, his voice filled with awe. Captain Rivera smiled. "You'll be doing the flying, with my guidance. We'll go through all the pre-flight checks together and then I'll show you the basics in the air. Mr. Grant will watch from the ground." The next 2 hours were the most exhilarating of Jamal's life. After careful instruction on safety procedures and basic controls, Captain Rivera took off and then, once they were at a safe altitude, let Jamal take the controls. The feeling of actually steering the small aircraft, feeling it respond to his touch, was nothing like the simulator. It was real, immediate, and absolutely thrilling. When they landed and taxied back to where Grant waited, Jamal couldn't stop, smiling. His whole body buzzed with excitement. "Well?" Grant asked, though the answer was written all over the boy's face. "It was amazing," Jamal breathed. "The best thing ever." Grant laughed. "I thought you'd enjoy it. Captain Rivera tells me you have a natural aptitude." The pilot nodded. "He has good instincts and steady hands. With proper training, he could go far." "That's the plan," Grant said. He turned to Jamal. "How would you feel about regular lessons? Maybe once a month for now, more frequently during summer break?" Jamal could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Jamal," Grant said seriously, "what you did that day at the airport wasn't just about saving my life. You showed exceptional awareness, courage, and decisive action. Those are qualities that deserve to be nurtured." He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Besides, I've come to enjoy our time together. You remind me why I started Globetech in the first place, to turn amazing ideas into reality." On the drive back to school, Jamal was quiet, processing everything that had happened. "Mr. Grant," he said finally, "do you think I could be a real pilot someday? Like for a job?" "I think you can be whatever you set your mind to," Grant replied. "A pilot, an engineer, an astronaut, the choice will be yours. My job is to make sure you have those choices." When they reached Westbrook, Denise was waiting in the headmaster's office. She had driven over from Hartford after getting a message about Grant's visit. Jamal rushed to tell her about his flying lesson, words tumbling out in excited bursts. Denise listened with a smile, though Jamal could see a touch of worry in her eyes. Later, when Grant had gone to speak with the headmaster, she pulled her son aside. "Are you happy here, Jamal? Really happy?" Jamal thought about his new school, his growing confidence, the incredible opportunities opening before him, and the wonder of having actually flown a plane. "Yes, Mom, I really am. Are you?" Denise looked at her son, no longer the quiet, reserved boy from Newark, but a young man growing into his potential. "I am. It was scary at first, such a big change. But seeing you like this," she touched his cheek gently. "This is what every mother wants, to see her child thrive." That evening, as Jamal prepared for bed in his dormitory room, he looked out at the snow-covered campus. He thought about how one moment, one decision to speak up when he saw something wrong had changed everything. He had saved a life, and in doing so had opened up a world of possibilities for himself and his mother. On his desk sat a framed newspaper clipping. Though the article didn't name him, Jamal kept it as a reminder. The headline read, "Black boy yelled, 'The plane's been sabotaged,' ended up saving a billionaire's life." Below it, Grant had written a note. To Jamal, who saw what others missed and had the courage to speak up. "The sky is no longer the limit." Jamal smiled at the note. Tomorrow he would call his grandmother and tell her about flying the plane. Next week he had a science project due. Next month, another flying lesson. And after that, who knew? The future stretched before him, full of promise. A future that had almost been cut short for one man, but now offered boundless opportunity for another. 3 days passed while Jamal and Denise remained in the hotel. They were not allowed to leave without security escorts, and Denise had to call her second job to explain her absence. She was vague about the details, saying only that there had been an incident at the airport and she was helping with an investigation. The hotel room, despite its luxury, was beginning to feel like a cage. On the morning of the 4th day, Agent Wells arrived with news. "We've made an arrest," he told them. "The man Jamal saw planting the device is in custody. His name is Victor Kozlov, a former military engineer with expertise in explosives." "Did he say who hired him?" Denise asked, keeping her voice low so Jamal, who was watching TV in the bedroom, wouldn't hear. He's cooperating, Agent Wells replied. Based on his information, we've obtained warrants to search the offices of Alan Voss, the CEO of Rival Tech Industries. Voss is Grant's main competitor for the Quantum Merge acquisition. So it's over? Denise asked hopefully. We can go home? Agent Wells hesitated. We're still gathering evidence against Voss. Until we have him in custody, we'd prefer if you stayed somewhere secure. Have you considered Mr. Grant's offer? Denise had done little else but think about it. The folder contained detailed information about the school, the job, and the apartment in Connecticut. It was an incredible opportunity, one that could change their lives forever. But it also meant leaving behind everything familiar, including her mother and sisters in Newark. I need to talk to Jamal about it, she said. Really talk, not just with all this chaos around us. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Agent Wells checked the peephole, then opened it to reveal Richard Grant, dressed more casually than before in dark jeans and a button-up shirt with no tie. Good morning, he said. I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all, Agent Wells replied. I was just updating Ms. Lewis on the case. Grant nodded. I've heard the news. It's a positive development. He turned to Denise. I came to ask if you and Jamal would like to get out of this hotel for a few hours. With security, of course. Denise's eyes lit up. That would be wonderful. We're going a bit stir-crazy. I thought we might visit the Globe Tech Innovation Center, Grant suggested. Jamal might find it interesting. We have a flight simulator and some other things I think he'd enjoy. When Jamal heard about the plan, his entire demeanor changed. The quiet, somewhat withdrawn boy of the past few days transformed instantly into an excited kid. A real flight simulator? Like the ones pilots train on? Exactly like that, Grant confirmed. And some other cool tech you might enjoy. An hour later, they were in a convoy of black SUVs heading into Manhattan. Security personnel surrounded them, and Agent Diaz accompanied them personally. Jamal pressed his face against the window, taking in the sights of New York City. The Globe Tech Innovation Center occupied several floors of a gleaming skyscraper. Unlike the corporate headquarters, which was all business, the Innovation Center was designed to showcase the company's technology in interactive and engaging ways. As they entered through a private entrance, avoiding the crowds of visitors in the main lobby, Jamal's eyes widened at the futuristic interior. Glowing blue lines ran along the walls and floors leading to different areas. Holographic displays floated in mid-air, showing Globe Tech products and innovations. This is like something from a sci-fi movie, Jamal whispered to his mother. Grant smiled, clearly pleased by the boy's reaction. Wait until you see what's inside. He led them through a door marked Authorized Personnel Only into a large room, filled with various simulation equipment. The centerpiece was a full-scale cockpit of a commercial airliner, mounted on hydraulic lifts that could move in all directions to simulate flight. This is our aviation division's pride and joy, Grant explained. We develop advanced navigation systems and safety features for commercial aircraft. This simulator helps us test how pilots interact with our technology. Jamal approached the simulator with reverence, as if it were a sacred object. Can I go inside? That's why we're here, Grant said. He introduced them to a woman named Dr. Harper, the lead engineer for the aviation division. She had kind eyes and spoke to Jamal as if he were an adult, not talking down to him at all. I understand you know quite a bit about planes, she said. Would you like to try a simple flight simulation? Jamal nodded eagerly. Dr. Harper helped him into the pilot's seat and explained the basic controls. For the next hour, Jamal was in heaven. The simulator's screens showed a realistic view of the sky and landscape as he practiced taking off, basic maneuvering, and landing. He crashed a few times, but Dr. Harper assured him that was normal for beginners. While Jamal was occupied, Grant took Denise to a small observation room where they could watch through a window. He's a natural, Grant observed as Jamal successfully completed a landing. Most kids his age would be overwhelmed by all those instruments. He's always been good with details, Denise said proudly. When he gets interested in something, he learns everything about it. Grant nodded. Have you thought more about my offer? Denise took a deep breath. It's an amazing opportunity, but it's also a huge change. We don't know anyone in Connecticut. My family is all in Newark. I understand, Grant said. Family is important. But consider this. The school term doesn't start for another 2 months. You could use that time to settle in, and Newark is only a couple of hours away by train. You could visit regularly. And the job? Denise asked. I don't have the qualifications. For a director position. You've been managing cleaning staff for 5 years, Grant pointed out. You handle scheduling, training, quality control, and customer relations. Those are exactly the skills needed for this role. The only difference is the scale and the salary. Through the window, they watched as Jamal executed a perfect takeoff, his face set in concentration. Denise felt a surge of emotion. Pride mixed with a mother's natural desire to give her child every possible advantage. Can we visit the school? She asked finally. Before we decide? Grant smiled. Of course. We can go tomorrow if you'd like. After, the flight simulator, Dr. Harper, showed Jamal other technologies being developed at GlobeTech. Virtual reality systems, advanced robotics, and artificial intelligence programs. Jamal asked thoughtful questions that impressed even the senior engineers. During lunch in the executive dining room, Jamal finally asked the question that had been on his mind. Mr. Grant, if I hadn't seen that man put the bomb on your plane, what would have happened? A hush fell over the table. Grant put down his fork and looked directly at Jamal. The device was designed to ignite the fuel line when the plane reached 30,000 feet. At that altitude with that type of aircraft, he paused, choosing his words carefully. The plane would have broken apart. No one would have survived. Jamal nodded slowly, processing this information. So I really did save your life. Yes, Grant said simply. You did, and I will never forget that. On the ride back to the hotel, Jamal was quieter, thinking about everything he had seen and learned. Denise watched her son, noting how different he seemed already, more confident, more aware of his own capabilities. As they pulled up to the hotel, Agent Diaz's phone rang. After a brief conversation, her expression turned grave. Ms. Lewis, Jamal, we need to get you inside quickly. There's been a development. Once they were safely in the suite, Agent Diaz explained. Alan Voss, the CEO we suspected, has disappeared. He wasn't at his home or office when agents went to question him. We believe he may have been tipped off about the investigation. What does that mean for us? Denise asked, automatically moving closer to Jamal. It means we need to accelerate our plans, Grant said firmly. Connecticut might be the safest option right now. You'd be away from Newark, where Voss might look. For you. And the school campus has excellent security. Denise looked at Jamal, who nodded slightly. In that moment, a decision was made. We'll go to Connecticut, she said, at least to see the school and the apartment. I'll make the arrangements immediately, Grant replied. We can leave first thing tomorrow. That night, as Jamal lay in bed, he thought about how quickly life could change. One moment of courage, one decision to speak up, had altered the course of his future. He wondered what Connecticut would be like, and if the kids at the new school would be friendly. But mostly, he felt a strange sense of purpose that he had never experienced before. For the first time in his life, Jamal Lewis felt like he mattered, like he could make a difference in the world. The next morning, Jamal woke up in a hotel room nicer than any place he had ever stayed. For a moment, he was confused by the plush white bedding and the huge television on the wall. Then he remembered everything. The plane, the bomb, the FBI agents. He sat up quickly, looking around for his mother. Denise was already awake, sitting in an armchair by the window with a cup of coffee. She gave him a tired smile. Good morning, baby. Did you sleep okay? Jamal nodded, though his dreams had been filled with exploding planes and men in blue jumpsuits. Is there any news? He asked. The FBI agents are waiting outside. They said Mr. Grant wants to meet with us after breakfast. Denise's voice held a mixture of awe and nervousness. Until yesterday, Richard Grant had just been a name she occasionally saw in the news, the billionaire founder of GlobeTech, a man whose wealth was so vast it was hard to imagine. Now her son had saved his life. There was a gentle knock at the door. When Denise opened it, a hotel staff member wheeled in a cart loaded with breakfast: pancakes, eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, and orange juice. Jamal's eyes widened at the spread. "Compliments of Mr. Grant," the staff member said with a smile before leaving. As they ate, Denise turned on the television. Every news channel was covering the story. "Assassination attempt foiled at Newark Airport," read the headlines. The reporters described how a young hero had spotted the sabotage, but thankfully, no names or images of Jamal were being shown. One reporter stood outside the Globetech headquarters in New York. Sources close to the investigation believe this was a targeted attack related to Grant's upcoming business moves. Globetech stock dropped briefly in pre-market trading but has since recovered as investors react to Grant's narrow escape. Denise turned off the TV. "Eat your breakfast, Jamal. We don't need to watch all that." After they finished eating and got dressed, Agent Diaz knocked on their door. "Mr. Grant is ready to see you now," she said. "He's in a secure suite upstairs." They took a private elevator to the top floor of the hotel. 2 security guards stood outside a set of double doors. They nodded to Agent Diaz and opened the doors for them. The suite was enormous, bigger than Jamal and Denise's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the New York skyline in the distance. Richard Grant sat at a dining table covered with papers and laptops. Frank Porter stood nearby, along with Agent Wells and 2 other men in suits. Grant rose when they entered. "Ms. Lewis, Jamal, thank you for coming." He gestured to the empty chairs. "Please, sit down. Can I get you anything?" "No, thank you," Denise said quietly. "We just had breakfast. It was very generous of you." "It's the least I can do," Grant replied. He looked at Jamal. "How are you feeling today, young man?" "I'm okay," Jamal said. Then, curiosity getting the better of him, he asked, "Did they catch the guy who did it?" Grant exchanged looks with Agent Wells, who stepped forward. "We have a lead," the FBI agent said. "The man you saw was hired help, a professional with known connections to corporate espionage. We're tracking his movements and expect to have him in custody soon." "But he was working for someone else," Grant added. "Someone who wanted me out of the picture." Porter cleared his throat. "We believe it's related to the Quantum Merge acquisition." Denise looked confused, and Grant explained. "Globetech is in the process of acquiring a smaller tech company called Quantum Merge. Their quantum computing technology is years ahead of anyone else in the field. The deal would give us a significant advantage over our competitors. Not everyone is happy about that. We've narrowed our focus to 3 possible suspects," Agent Wells continued, "all executives at competing tech firms who stand to lose billions if this acquisition goes through." Jamal tried to process all this information. It seemed like something from a movie: corporate spies, assassination plots, billions of dollars at stake. And somehow, he was in the middle of it all. "What happens to us now?" Denise asked, worry clear in her voice. "Can we go home? I need to get back to work, and Jamal has summer school next week." "That's actually what I wanted to discuss with you," Grant said. He signaled, and everyone except Porter left the room. "Ms. Lewis, I've taken the liberty of looking into your situation." Denise stiffened slightly. "Our situation? You're a single mother, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. You live in a neighborhood with high crime rates, and while Jamal is enrolled in a decent public school, it lacks resources for gifted students like him." Grant's tone was matter-of-fact, not judgmental. "We get by just fine," Denise said, her pride evident. "I've always provided for my son." "I'm not suggesting otherwise," Grant said quickly. "You've done an amazing job raising an extraordinary young man. But I owe Jamal my life, and I'd like to help if you'll allow it." He slid a folder across the table. Inside is information about a private school in Connecticut, one of the best in the country. They have an excellent science and engineering program. Jamal would thrive there. I've spoken to the headmaster, and they're prepared to offer him a full scholarship. Denise didn't touch the folder. "Connecticut? That's hours away from Newark." "There's more," Grant continued. "Globetech has an office in Hartford, not far from the school. We have an opening for a regional staff director that I believe would be perfect for your organizational skills and experience. The salary is 3 times what you're making now, with full benefits and flexible hours. Denise and Jamal sat in stunned silence. Grant let them absorb the information before continuing. You would, of course, need a place to live. There's a company-owned apartment near the office that would be made available to you rent-free for the first year, after which you could choose to purchase it at a significant discount or find another place if you prefer. Denise finally found her voice. Mr. Grant, it's too much. We can't accept all this. You can, Grant said firmly. And you should. Not just for Jamal's sake, but for mine as well. I need to know that something good came from yesterday's events. That instead of ending in tragedy, this situation created opportunity. Jamal looked at his mother, then at Grant. Why are you really doing this? He asked, surprising both adults with his directness. Grant studied the boy for a moment, then smiled. Because when I was your age, someone gave me a chance. My family didn't have much, but a teacher saw potential in me and helped me get a scholarship to a good school. That changed everything for me. He leaned forward. You have remarkable observational skills and intelligence, Jamal. I believe you could do extraordinary things with the right opportunities. Denise placed her hand on the folder but didn't open it. We would need time to think about this. Of course, Grant nodded. Take all the time you need. But there is one more immediate concern, your safety. Until we've apprehended everyone involved in the assassination attempt, there's a small but real risk to you both. The people behind this know their plan was foiled by a witness, though they don't know who you are yet. So we're in danger? Denise asked, instinctively moving closer to Jamal. As a precaution, I've arranged for private security to remain with you until the investigation is complete. And it might be best if you didn't return to your apartment just yet. Jamal thought about everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday morning, he had been a normal kid waiting for his mom to finish work. Now he was sitting in a luxury hotel suite with one of the richest men in the world who was offering to change their lives completely. Can I still read about planes? Jamal asked suddenly. At the new school? Grant laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to lighten the atmosphere in the room. Jamal, at that school you can build planes if you want to. Outside the hotel, reporters gathered, hoping for a glimpse of Richard Grant or information about the mysterious child who had saved him. Inside, 3 lives continued to intertwine, pulled together by fate and a moment of courage that had changed everything. The security guards kept a firm grip on Jamal's arms as they brought him to stand before Richard Grant. The boy's sneakers scraped against the tarmac, and his heart pounded so hard he thought everyone must hear it. Behind them, Denise Lewis was being stopped by other security personnel, her voice rising in panic as she called her son's name. Let the boy speak, Grant said, his voice calm but commanding. The security guards loosened their grip slightly but remained close. Jamal took a deep breath. This was his chance. Sir, I saw someone put something in the engine. A man in a blue jumpsuit. He didn't look like the other workers. He kept looking around like he was afraid of getting caught, and he put a small box with wires in the left engine. There's a red light blinking in there now. Frank Porter, Grant's head of security, stepped forward. Mr. Grant, we have procedures for this. The plane has been checked by our team. Grant held up his hand, silencing Porter. His eyes never left Jamal's face. What's your name, son? Jamal Lewis, sir. My mom works here. She's a cleaning supervisor. Jamal pointed toward where Denise was still being held back by security. I wasn't supposed to be out here. I'm sorry, but I had to tell you. Grant studied the boy for a long moment. In his years of building Globe Tech, he had developed an instinct for sincerity. This boy wasn't lying, at least he believed what he was saying. Frank, check the left engine again, Grant ordered. Sir, with all due respect, we've completed the security protocol. This is most likely a prank or... Check it again. Grant's voice was steel. Now. Porter hesitated only a moment before signaling to 2 members of the security team. They approached, the plane's left engine with flashlights even though there was still enough daylight to see clearly. Ms. Lewis? Grant called out to Denise. Please come here. The security personnel released Denise, who ran to her son and pulled him into a tight embrace before turning fearful eyes to Grant. I'm so sorry, sir. He was supposed to stay in the staff lounge. I don't know what got into him. Please don't fire me. He's a good boy. He just... Ms. Lewis, Grant interrupted gently. I'm not going to fire you. Your son may have just done something very important. Let's wait and see. By the plane, one of the security team members had opened an access panel on the engine. He peered inside with his flashlight, then suddenly stiffened. Sir, there's something here that shouldn't be. The atmosphere on the tarmac changed instantly. Frank Porter barked orders into his radio. Within seconds, more security personnel swarmed the area. One of them, a woman with close-cropped hair who seemed to have more authority than the others, carefully examined the device without touching it. Everyone needs to move back right now, she announced, her voice tense. This appears to be an incendiary device. We need to evacuate this entire section of the tarmac immediately and call in the bomb squad. What had been skepticism minutes before transformed into urgent action. Airport security protocols kicked in. Alarms sounded. Announcements blared over loudspeakers. People began running. Grant's security team quickly surrounded him, preparing to rush him to safety, but he resisted. The boy and his mother come with us, he insisted, pointing to Jamal and Denise. Porter began to object, but Grant's expression made it clear this was non-negotiable. Together, they were hustled to a secure room deep within the airport's administrative section. It was a sparse space with a conference table, chairs, and a coffee machine in the corner. Grant's team positioned themselves at the door while Porter made a flurry of phone calls. Denise sat with her arm around Jamal, still trying to process what was happening. Jamal, how did you know? She asked quietly. What were you even doing out there? Jamal looked down at his hands. I just wanted to see the planes up close. I was looking at that private jet because it was so cool, and I saw this guy acting weird. He didn't move like the other workers, and the thing he put in the engine didn't look right. Grant, who had been conferring with Porter, turned his attention to Jamal. You have quite an eye for detail, young man. How do you know so much? About planes? I read a lot of magazines, Jamal replied shyly. Aviation Weekly is my favorite, and sometimes the pilots let me ask questions when Mom is cleaning the staff areas. Grant nodded thoughtfully. Knowledge and observation, a powerful combination. He sat down across from Jamal and Denise. The FBI is on their way. They'll want to ask you what you saw. Just tell them exactly what you told me. Denise squeezed her son's shoulder. Is it really a bomb? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. They believe it's an incendiary device, Grant replied. Designed to ignite the fuel line once the plane reached cruising altitude. He didn't add what they all knew, that such a device would have been catastrophic, causing the plane to explode in midair. The reality of what had nearly happened seemed to hit Denise all at once. She pulled Jamal closer. Oh my God. The door opened and Porter entered with two FBI agents, a tall man with a closely trimmed beard and a shorter woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun. They introduced themselves as Agent Wells and Agent Diaz. We'll need to speak with the boy, Agent Diaz said, her tone professional but not unkind. His mother stays with him, Grant insisted. The agents nodded and sat down. What followed was a gentle but thorough questioning. Jamal described everything he had seen. The suspicious maintenance worker, the strange device, the blinking red light. The agents showed him photos of airport employees, but Jamal didn't recognize the man he had seen. He wasn't regular staff, Jamal explained. His uniform looked new, too clean, and he moved like he wasn't used to wearing it. Agent Wells raised an eyebrow, impressed by the boy's observation. We've pulled the security camera footage, he said. It confirms everything. Jamal has told us the bomb squad has secured the device. It was sophisticated. It would have bypassed standard pre-flight checks. Do we know who's responsible? Grant asked. We're working on it, Agent Diaz replied. The device has certain signatures that may help us identify the maker. And we got a partial image of the suspect's face from the security footage. Throughout the questioning, Jamal remained calm, answering each question thoughtfully. Denise watched her son with a mixture of fear and pride. This quiet boy who spent hours reading plane magazines had noticed what trained security professionals had missed. As the questioning wound down, Grant's phone buzzed. He checked it and frowned. "The news has gotten out," he said. "It's already hitting social media. Assassination attempt on tech billionaire foiled by child." Agent Wells stood up. "We'll need to control the narrative. For security reasons, we can't have Jamal's identity made public just yet." "I agree," Grant said firmly. "The Lewis family needs protection until we know who's behind this." Denise looked alarmed. "Protection? You mean like bodyguards?" "Just as a precaution," Agent Diaz assured her. "We've arranged for you to stay at a secure hotel tonight. An agent will remain with you at all times." Outside the room they could hear increased activity. More FBI agents arriving, airport officials demanding updates, and the distant sound of news helicopters. The story was spreading fast. Jamal, who had been quiet for some time, finally spoke up. "What happens now?" Grant looked at the boy who had saved his life with newfound respect. "Now we find out who tried to kill me and why, and we make sure they never get another chance." As they prepared to leave the room, Grant pulled Porter aside. "I want a full background check on the Lewis family. Find out everything. Their living situation, Jamal's school, any financial issues, do it quietly." Porter nodded. "What are you thinking, sir?" Grant watched as Denise straightened Jamal's collar, her hands still trembling slightly. "I'm thinking that boy has remarkable potential, and I owe him a debt I can never fully repay." Night had fallen completely over Newark Airport. In the administrative wing behind secured doors, the convergence of lives that had begun on the tarmac was growing stronger, forming connections that would change all of them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The summer heat pressed down on Newark International Airport like a heavy blanket. 12-year-old Jamal Lewis sat on a plastic chair in the airport staff lounge, his legs swinging back and forth as he waited for his mother to finish her shift. A dog-eared aviation magazine lay open on his lap, but his attention had drifted to the large window overlooking the tarmac where planes of all sizes taxied, took off, and landed in a carefully choreographed dance. Denise Lewis had been working as a cleaning supervisor at the airport for nearly 5 years now. Most days, Jamal would go to his grandmother's house after school, but during summer break, he often came to the airport on Fridays. He liked watching the planes and imagining all the places they were going. His mother had arranged it with her supervisor. Jamal was a quiet, well-behaved boy who never caused trouble. "I'm going to finish the executive terminal," Denise said, adjusting her uniform. "You stay right here, okay? I'll be back in 45 minutes, then we can go home." Jamal nodded without looking away from the window. "Can I walk around a little? Just to the vending machines and back?" His mother hesitated, then sighed. "All right, but nowhere else. No going near the security checkpoints or boarding areas. You know the rules." "I know, Mom," Jamal said. He had been coming here long enough to understand the boundaries. After his mother left, Jamal continued watching the planes for another 10 minutes. A sleek white and blue private jet had caught his attention. It was smaller than the commercial airliners, but somehow more impressive. The late afternoon sun gleamed off its polished surface as ground crew moved around it with purpose. Jamal decided to get a closer look. He wasn't planning to break his promise to his mom. Not exactly. The private aviation terminal had a different viewing area, and technically, it wasn't a boarding area or security checkpoint. He'd just take a quick peek and be back before she knew he was gone. The private aviation terminal was quieter than the main concourse. The floors were shiny marble instead of scuffed tile, and the seating areas featured leather chairs instead of rows of connected plastic seats. Jamal tried to look like he belonged there, keeping his head down and walking with purpose like he'd seen adults do when they didn't want to be questioned. He found a spot near a large window that offered a perfect view of the private jet. A small plaque on the window identified it as a Gulfstream G650, and Jamal's eyes widened. He had read about this model in his magazines. It was one of the fastest and most expensive private jets in the world. As he watched, a maintenance worker in a blue jumpsuit approached the plane. Something about the way the man moved caught Jamal's attention. Unlike the other ground crew who moved with confidence and routine, this man kept looking over his shoulder. He climbed up to access the engine on the left wing, quickly glanced around, then reached into his tool bag. Jamal pressed his face closer to the glass. The man pulled out something that didn't look like any airplane part or tool Jamal had ever seen in his magazines. It was small and rectangular, with what appeared to be wires attached to it. The worker quickly attached it inside the engine housing, closed the access panel, and hurried away. Jamal frowned. He had read enough about planes to know that engines were complicated and dangerous things. Something didn't feel right, but he wasn't sure what he had just seen. Maybe it was a new part or a special tool for the fancy jet. Just then, a commotion at the terminal entrance caught his attention. A group of people walked in, surrounded by men in dark suits with earpieces. In the center of the group was a tall man with salt and pepper hair wearing an expensive-looking suit. Even though Jamal didn't recognize him, he could tell this was someone important. "Mr. Grant, we're still on schedule to depart in 20 minutes, a woman with a tablet said to the man. "The meeting in San Francisco is set for 9 p.m. local time." The man, Mr. Grant nodded without looking up from his phone. "Make sure the presentation files are ready. I need to review them during the flight." Jamal watched as the group moved toward the doors leading to the tarmac. With a jolt, he realized they were heading toward the Gulf Stream he had been watching, the one where the suspicious maintenance worker had just placed something strange. His heart began to race. Should he tell someone what he saw? But what if he was wrong? What if it was nothing? He was just a kid, and these were important adults who probably wouldn't listen to him anyway. As if sensing Jamal's gaze, the important man, Mr. Grant, looked up from his phone and made brief eye contact with the boy. For a moment, their eyes met across the terminal. Jamal felt frozen in place. Then Mr. Grant looked away, continuing his conversation as he walked toward the exit. Jamal made a split-second decision. He needed to get a closer look at the plane. There was a door to the tarmac that was propped open where some luggage was being loaded. If he timed it right, he could slip through without being noticed. Heart pounding in his chest, Jamal moved quickly toward the door. He waited until the luggage handlers were focused on a heavy bag, then slipped past them onto the tarmac. The heat hit him immediately, along with the smell of jet fuel and the loud whine of distant engines. Staying close to the building, Jamal made his way toward the Gulf Stream. He could see Mr. Grant and his group approaching the aircraft from another direction. A set of stairs had been rolled up to the plane's door, and the pilots were doing their final external inspection. As Jamal got closer, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. A small red light was now blinking from inside the engine housing where the maintenance worker had placed the strange device. Jamal had read enough spy books and seen enough movies to recognize what it might be, some kind of bomb or sabotage device. His mind raced. Mr. Grant and the others were about to board the plane. The pilots hadn't noticed anything wrong during their inspection. No one knew except him. Across the tarmac, Richard Grant checked his watch impatiently. At 52, he had built Globetech from a small startup into one of the most valuable tech companies in the world. Time was his most precious commodity, and delays irritated him deeply. This trip to San Francisco was crucial. The board was considering his proposal for a major acquisition that would cement Globetech's position as an industry leader. "Final security check is complete, sir," his head of security, Frank Porter, informed him. "We're clear to board." Grant nodded and took his first step toward the stairs. That's when he heard the shouting. "Stop, don't get on! The plane's been sabotaged!" Grant turned to see a young black boy running across the tarmac, waving his arms frantically. 2 security guards were already moving to intercept him. "Stop! There's something wrong with the engine, please." The boy's voice cracked with desperation as the guards grabbed him by the arms. Grant raised his hand, signaling his team to wait. Something in the boy's expression, raw fear mixed with absolute certainty, made him pause. "Sir, we should continue boarding," Porter said quietly. "Security will handle this." Grant hesitated, his eyes still on the struggling boy. "Bring him here," he said finally. Sir, that's not advisable. Bring him here, Grant repeated firmly. Now. As the guards brought the frightened but still determined boy toward him, Richard Grant had no way of knowing that this moment would change both their lives forever, and that the next few minutes would determine whether he lived to see tomorrow. From the terminal door, Denise Lewis emerged, her face a mask of horror as she saw her son in the grip of security guards on the tarmac. "Jamal!" she screamed, running toward them. "What are you doing? Oh my God!" The sun was beginning to set behind the control tower, casting long shadows across the tarmac. In that moment, as 4 lives converged beside the gleaming white jet, the universe held its breath.